The stars were quiet that night when Commander Danny Cole sat in his chair on the bridge of the Earth vessel. He was a simple man from Kansas, 32 years old, with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his uniform that he had not noticed yet. His crew was small, just 40 people, and their mission was simple. They were mapping the outer edges of known space, far from home, far from anything interesting. Danny had joined the space fleet because he wanted to see the universe. So far, the universe had been mostly empty, rocks and dust and the occasional dead planet, nothing that would make the history books. That changed when the distress signal came through. Lieutenant was the first to notice it. She was young, only 25, with sharp eyes and a nervous habit of tapping her fingers when something worried her. Right now, she was tapping very fast. "Commander," she said, "we're picking up a signal. It's weak, but it's definitely a distress call." Danny sat up. "Where's it coming from?" "That's the problem, sir." Pulled up the star charts on the main screen. A red dot blinked in a region marked with warning symbols. "It's coming from space." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew about They were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, with an empire that covered 300 star systems. They were beautiful and terrifying, standing 7 feet tall with silver hair and eyes that seemed to glow. Their queen, the Eternal, had ruled for over 2,000 years. She was considered a god by some species and a monster by others. The one thing everyone agreed on was simple. You did not you did not enter their space without permission. You did not even look at them wrong. And now there was a distress signal coming from their territory. "We should ignore it," said Officer Ben Harper, the ship's security chief. He was a big man with a face and a practical mind. "Whatever's happening over there, it's not our problem." "Someone's dying," Danny said quietly. "Someone's always dying somewhere, Commander. If we go in there and something goes wrong, they won't just kill us. They'll burn Earth. They've done it before to other species." Danny knew Ben was right. The smart thing, the safe thing, was to turn away and pretend they never heard the signal. That was what any sensible commander would do. But Danny Cole had never been very good at being sensible. "How long until whoever's on that ship runs out of air?" he asked. Checked her readings. Her face went pale. "Maybe 20 minutes, sir, probably less." 20 minutes. That was all the time someone had left to live. Danny stood up. "Take us in full speed." "Commander," Ben started. "I heard you, Ben. I understand the risks. But I'm not going to sit here and let someone die when we can help them. If they want to punish us for saving one of their people, then that's a conversation we'll have later." They changed course and flew toward the signal. What they found was worse than Danny had expected. A royal transport ship, one of the most advanced vessels in the galaxy, was drifting and broken. Holes had been torn through its hull. Bodies floated in the wreckage, guards in their silver armor, all of them dead. "What happened here?" whispered. "Assassination attempt," Ben said grimly. "Someone tried to kill whoever was on that ship, and from the looks of it they almost succeeded." Danny grabbed his emergency suit. "I'm going over there." "Sir, you can't." "Ben, you have the bridge. Keep trying to stabilize our connection with their ship. If there's anyone alive over there, I'm bringing them back." He did not wait for arguments. He was already moving. The inside of the ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered red, casting strange shadows on the walls. Danny moved carefully through the corridors, stepping over bodies, trying not to think about how easily these trained warriors had been killed. He found her in the command chamber. Queen lay on the floor, surrounded by the bodies of her personal guards. They had died protecting her, throwing themselves between their queen and the attackers. But they had not been enough. Was wounded, silver blood pooling beneath her, her breathing shallow and weak. She was the most beautiful thing Danny had ever seen. Even dying, even broken, she was magnificent. Her silver hair spread around her like a halo, and her pale skin seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. but none of that mattered right now. What mattered was that she was alive barely, and she would not stay that way for long. Danny knelt beside her and checked her wounds. He was not a doctor, but he had basic medical training. The injuries were severe. She needed real help, and she needed it now. "Can you hear me?" he asked softly. "I'm going to get you out of here, just hold on." Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. They were silver, like everything else about her, and filled with pain and confusion. "Who?" she whispered. "My name is Danny Cole. I'm human. We picked up your distress signal." He carefully lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than he expected. "I'm taking you to my ship. We have a doctor. He's going to help you." She tried to speak again, but her eyes closed and she went limp. Danny carried her through the ruined ship, back to moving as fast as he could without hurting her further. His crew stared in shock as he came aboard with the most powerful being in the galaxy cradled in his arms like a child. "Get Dr. Samuel Grant," Danny ordered. "Now." The next 3 days were the longest of Danny's life. Dr. Grant worked without rest, using equipment that had never been designed for biology, improvising solutions to problems no human had ever faced before. The Queen's injuries were severe. Her internal organs were different from humans, her blood chemistry was strange, and nothing in the medical database could help them. But Samuel Grant was stubborn, and Danny Cole was more stubborn still. Danny stayed at her bedside the entire time. He did not sleep. He barely ate. He talked to her unconscious form, telling her stories about Earth, about Kansas, about his family's farm, and the way the wheat fields looked in summer. He told her jokes, bad ones that his father used to tell, the kind that made people groan instead of laugh. He did not know if she could hear him. He talked anyway. On the 3rd day, Queen opened her eyes. Danny was asleep in his chair, exhausted beyond measure when she woke. She lay still for a long time, studying this strange creature who had saved her life. He was small by her standards, plain and unremarkable. His uniform was wrinkled. There was still a coffee stain on his sleeve. And yet he had risked everything to save her. A stranger, an alien, someone who could offer him nothing in return. In 2,000 years of life, had never met anyone like him. "You saved me," she said. Danny jolted awake, nearly falling out of his chair. "Oh, you're up. How do you feel? The doc said you might be groggy, but the tissue regeneration seems to be working and your vital signs are stable now and—" "You saved me," she repeated, her voice soft with wonder. Danny stopped rambling. He looked at her, really looked, and saw something in her silver eyes that he did not understand. "Yeah," he said simply. "You were hurt. It's what anyone would do." Smiled, and the expression transformed her face from beautiful to radiant. "No," she said. "It is not what anyone would do, but it is what you did." She reached out and touched his hand, and something in the universe shifted forever. 3 months passed after Danny Cole saved the Queen. Life returned to normal, or at least that is what Danny tried to tell himself. He went back to his duties, mapping stars and charting planets, pretending that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Queen had returned to her empire after recovering on the. She had thanked Danny formally, given him a small medal that meant nothing to humans but apparently meant everything too, and then she had left. Danny thought that would be the end of it. A strange adventure, a good story to tell his someday, nothing more. He was very, very wrong. The Galactic Council met once a year on Nexus Station, a massive space station at the center of known space. Representatives from 400 different species gathered there to discuss trade, borders, and disputes. It was boring, political, and incredibly important. The decisions made at the Council shaped the future of entire civilizations. Earth sent a small delegation. Humanity was new to galactic politics, still considered a minor species by most of the major powers. Ambassador Wells led the group, a sharp woman in her 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. She had spent 20 years fighting for Earth's place in the galaxy, and she was used to being ignored. Her aide was a young man named Peter, fresh out of the diplomatic academy and still nervous about everything. He jumped at loud noises and wrote down every word anyone said, filling notebook after notebook with observations. They sat at a small table near the back of the great chamber, far from the powerful species who dominated the front rows. There were there massive reptilian creatures who had been eyeing human space for decades. They floated in their crystal shells, beings of pure energy who traded in secrets and weapons. They shifted and changed, never holding one form for long, and dozens of others, each with their own agendas and schemes. Nobody paid attention to the humans. They never did. Then Queen arrived. The chamber fell silent when she entered. Had not attended a council meeting in over 300 years. She had no need to. Her empire was so powerful that she could send representatives and expect her wishes to be obeyed. For her to appear in person meant something significant was about to happen. She walked to the central platform, her silver gown flowing behind her like liquid light. Every eye in the chamber followed her. Every breath was held. "I have an announcement," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it carried to every corner of the massive room. 3 months ago, my transport was attacked. My guards were killed. I was left to die in the cold of space. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many had heard rumors of the attack, but no one had confirmed them. "I would have died," continued, "if not for the actions of a human vessel that intercepted my distress signal. Their commander, a man named Danny Cole, risked his ship and his crew to save my life. He asked for nothing in return. He expected nothing. He simply saw someone in need and chose to help." Wells felt her heart stop. She looked at Peter, who had gone completely white. "What is she doing?" Peter whispered. Shook her head. She had no idea. Silver eyes swept across the chamber, meeting the gaze of every delegate in turn. "Many of you have dismissed humanity. You see them as young, weak, insignificant. Some of you have made plans to exploit them, to conquer them, to use them as resources for your own empires." Her voice hardened into steel. "Those plans end today." The silence in the chamber was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. "The human known as Danny Cole is mine," declared. "His species is under my protection. Any who threaten them, harm them, or displease them in any way will answer to me. They will answer to the full power of the Empire. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. There will be only consequences." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This is not a request. This is not a suggestion. This is the will of Queen the Eternal, and it will be obeyed." Nobody spoke. Nobody dared to speak. Wells sat frozen in her chair, her mind racing through the implications. With one declaration, had changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They were no longer a minor species to be ignored or exploited. They were under the protection of the most powerful empire in existence. Across the chamber, the delegate gripped his seat so hard that the metal cracked. High Commander had spent 50 years planning the conquest of human space. Those plans were now worthless. If they moved against Earth, they would destroy them. The representative flickered rapidly, its crystal shell pulsing with agitated light. They had sold weapons to the very assassins who attacked transport. If she ever discovered this, their entire species would burn. One by one, every power in the galaxy reconsidered their relationship with humanity. Descended from the platform and walked directly to the Earth delegation's table, stood up quickly, nearly knocking over her chair. Peter dropped his notebook. "Ambassador Wells," said calmly, "I would like to formally request permission to visit I wish to meet Commander Cole's family." Opened her mouth, closed it, and tried again. "Your Majesty, I will need to consult with my government." "Of course I will wait." And then, to the shock of everyone in the chamber, sat down in an empty chair next to Peter. Peter made a small squeaking sound and stopped breathing entirely. Your aid appears to be malfunctioning, observed. He's just nervous, Your Majesty, managed to keep her voice steady. This is all rather unexpected. I understand. I do not make such declarations lightly. His expression softened slightly. Ambassador Wells, I want you to understand something. My declaration was not merely political. Commander Cole saved my life when he had no reason to. He stayed at my bedside for 3 days, talking to me, caring for me while I healed. He asked for nothing. He expected nothing. She paused, and something vulnerable flickered in her ancient eyes. In 2,000 years of existence, I have been feared and obeyed, but I have never been cared for. Not truly. Not the way your commander cared for a stranger he found dying in space. Began to understand. This was not about politics or power. This was about something much more personal. The Queen of the had developed feelings for Danny Cole. Your Majesty said carefully, does Commander Cole know about your feelings? Not yet. I wish to make my intentions clear to the galaxy first, smiled slightly. I have learned that humans value honesty. I thought it best to be honest about what this declaration truly means. And what does it truly mean, Your Majesty? Looked at the human ambassador with those ancient silver eyes. It means that for the first time in 2,000 years, I have found something I want to protect. Someone who showed me kindness without calculation, generosity without expectation. I do not know if Commander Cole will return my feelings. That is his choice to make. But I will not allow anyone to harm him or his people while I have breath in my body. Sat back in her chair, stunned. She had negotiated with alien empires for 20 years. She had seen every kind of political maneuvering, every scheme and plot and betrayal. She had never seen anything like this. I will contact my government immediately, she said. I believe they will approve your visit, Your Majesty. Thank you, Ambassador, rose gracefully. I look forward to seeing Earth. I have heard it is beautiful. She walked away, leaving chaos in her wake. The chamber erupted into frantic whispers and urgent communications. Every species was scrambling to understand what had just happened and what it meant for their own plans. Peter finally remembered to breathe. Ambassador, he gasped, did an alien queen just announce to the entire galaxy that she has a crush on a human? Watch disappear through the chamber doors. Yes, Peter, I believe she did. What do we do? Started to laugh. She could not help it. After 20 years of fighting for scraps of respect, humanity had just become the most protected species in the galaxy because an alien empress had fallen for a farm boy from Kansas. We invite her for dinner, said, and we pray that Commander Cole knows how to handle the most powerful woman in the universe. Danny Cole stood in the middle of his parents' living room in Topeka, Kansas, trying to figure out how his life had gone so completely crazy. The room was small and comfortable, filled with old furniture and family photographs. The carpet was worn from decades of use. The walls needed painting. A crack ran across the ceiling that his father had been meaning to fix for about 15 years. And in approximately 3 hours, the most powerful being in the galaxy was coming for dinner. His mother, Cole, sat on the couch with her hands folded in her lap. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, the sort of person who solved every problem with food and hugs. Right now, she was trying very hard to understand what her son had just told her. So this woman said slowly, she's a queen. Yes, Mom. A real queen, not like a beauty queen or a prom queen, an actual queen who rules things. 300 star systems, Danny confirmed. She's been ruling for over 2,000 years. Was quiet for a moment, and she's coming here to our house to have dinner with us. That's what I've been told, yes. Danny looked around the living room with growing panic. I don't have anything to serve a queen. The good china has that chip in it from when your sister dropped a plate. The dining room table has that water stain. The house hasn't been properly cleaned in. Mom, she's not coming for the house or the china. Then what is she coming for? Danny did not have a good answer for that. He still could not believe any of this was real. One moment he had been a simple commander doing simple work, and the next moment an alien empress had apparently declared to the entire galaxy that he belonged to her. His father, George Cole, had been sitting quietly in his old armchair throughout this conversation. George was a retired farmer, a man of few words and practical thoughts. He had seen a lot of strange things in his 70 years, but nothing quite like this. "Son," George said finally, "let me make sure I understand this correctly. This queen, she's the one you pulled out of that wrecked ship a few months back." "Yeah, Dad." "And now she's what exactly, sweet on you?" Danny felt his face turn red. "I don't know if I'd put it that way." "How would you put it?" Before Danny could answer, the front door burst open and his sister rushed in. She was 30 years old, married, mother of two, and currently looking like she had run all the way from her car. "Is it true?" demanded. "Is an alien queen actually coming to Mom's house because she has feelings for my brother?" "Where did you hear that?" Danny asked. "Danny, the whole planet is talking about it. There are news vans parked at the end of the street. I had to show my driver's license 3 times just to get past security. The president called Mom this morning." Danny turned to his mother. "The president called you?" Nodded calmly. "Nice young woman, very polite. She asked if we needed anything for the dinner, offered to send caterers, decorators, security people." "What did you tell her?" "I said no thank you, I can make my own pot roast." Stood up and smoothed her dress. "If this queen wants to meet our family, she's going to meet our real family, not some fancy show put on by caterers." Danny loved his mother more in that moment than he ever had before. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Cooked. George fixed the crack in the ceiling that he had been ignoring for 15 years. Kept her children, a 7-year-old boy named Tyler and a 5-year-old girl named Sophie, from destroying anything important. And Danny paced back and forth, nervous in a way he had never been before. He had faced death in space. He had made decisions that risked his entire crew. None of that had made him as anxious as the thought of seeing Queen again. When she arrived, she came alone. No guards, no servants, no royal procession. Just a single shuttle that landed quietly in the field behind the Cole family home, and a tall figure in a simple blue gown who walked across the grass toward the back door. Was the one who opened it. She looked up at the 7-foot-tall alien empress, at her silver hair and glowing eyes, at the face that had watched civilizations rise and fall for 2,000 years. And smiled. "You must be," she said warmly. "Come in, dear, dinner's almost ready. I hope you like pot roast." Something flickered across face. Surprise, perhaps, or something softer. "Thank you for having me, Mrs. Cole. I hope my visit has not caused too much trouble." "Nonsense. We're happy to have you. Any friend of Danny's is welcome in this house." Took her hand and led her inside like she was welcoming an old neighbor. "George, come say hello. Bring the kids." The evening that followed was unlike anything had experienced in her long life. The Cole family did not bow or scrape or speak in careful diplomatic phrases. They treated her like a guest, nothing more and nothing less. George told her stories about farming and fishing, his voice slow and calm. His children showed her their toys and asked her endless questions about space, made sure her plate was always full and her glass was never empty. And Danny sat beside her, watching with quiet amazement as his family welcomed an empress into their home. "Your pot roast is excellent," Mrs. Cole said. She meant it. In 2,000 years of elaborate royal banquets, she had never tasted anything quite like this simple, home-cooked meal. "Thank you, dear. It was my mother's recipe. She taught me to make it when I was Sophie's age," smiled at the memory. "Some things are worth keeping simple." After dinner, Danny and walked outside together. The Kansas night was clear and cool, filled with stars that knew by name. The wind rustled through the wheat fields, carrying the smell of earth and growing things. "Your family is wonderful," said softly. "They're pretty special," Danny agreed. "Mom's going to talk about this dinner for the rest of her life, you know, feeding pot roast to a queen." "She should. It was genuinely excellent." Paused. "Danny, I must tell you something." "Okay." She turned to face him, her silver eyes serious. "My declaration at the council was not merely political. It was not a strategy to gain alliance with your species or to position myself against my enemies." Danny waited, his heart beating faster. "I have lived for over 2,000 years," continued. "I have been and feared. I have commanded armies and destroyed planets, but I have never been cared for, not truly, not the way you cared for me when I was dying on your ship." "I just did what anyone would do," Danny said. "No," her voice was fierce. "You did not. I have seen what others do, Danny. They calculate, they scheme, they ask what they can gain. You asked nothing. You simply sat beside me and told me terrible jokes about chickens crossing roads." Danny could not help but smile. "You heard those." "I heard everything. I was not fully unconscious, just too weak to respond. I heard you talk about your home, your family, your dreams for the future. I heard kindness in your voice, genuine kindness for a stranger who could offer you nothing." She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could see the faint glow of her skin in the starlight. "I do not wish to claim you like a possession," she said. "That is not what my declaration meant, though I understand why others saw it that way. I simply wanted the galaxy to know that you matter, that your species matters, that I will protect you and your people with everything I have." "Why?" Danny asked quietly. Smiled, and the expression made her look almost human. "Because you showed me something I had forgotten existed, kindness without calculation, generosity without expectation, care without condition." She reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were cool and smooth, but the touch sent warmth spreading through his chest. "I have lived 2,000 years, Danny Cole, and I have never met anyone like you." Danny looked at her. This ancient, powerful, beautiful being who ruled 300 star systems and commanded fleets that could destroy worlds. And all she wanted was someone to care about her. "I'd like to get to know you better," he said. "Not as a queen and a subject, just as two people who might become something more." Smile widened, and for the first time since he had known her, she looked truly happy. "I would like that very much," she said. Above them, the Kansas stars wheeled slowly through the sky, the same stars that had watched for 2,000 years. But tonight, they seemed different somehow. Tonight, they seemed like home. Not everyone in the galaxy was happy about the new order of things. High Commander of the Empire stood on the bridge of his warship, his reptilian eyes burning with fury. He was massive even by standards, nearly 8 feet tall, with scales the color of dried blood and claws that could tear through steel. He had conquered a dozen worlds in his lifetime. He had crushed rebellions and slaughtered enemies without mercy. And now all his plans were ruined because of one pathetic human. For 50 years had been planning the conquest of human space. Their worlds were rich with resources. Their population was perfect for slave labor. Their military was weak, their technology primitive. Taking their systems would have been easy, a simple expansion of territory that would have made the greatest commander in his species' history. But now they had declared protection over the humans. If they moved against Earth, they would face the full might of empire. Even was not foolish enough to think he could win that war. "This cannot stand," he growled to his officers. "That queen has grown soft, infatuated with a primitive creature. She is weak, vulnerable." His tactical officer, a smaller named, shifted nervously. "High Commander, with respect, the fleet outnumbers ours 10 to 1, even if we attacked with everything we have." "I am not speaking of direct war, fool. tail lashed against the deck. We need only remove the source of this problem, kill the human, and will have no reason to protect his species. She will return to her cold isolation, and we will take what is rightfully ours. Consider this. An assassination. It could work, but the security around him will be tight. After the Queen's declaration, every species in the galaxy knows his value. Then we must be clever about it. Turn to face a map of the galaxy displayed on the main screen. There is a diplomatic summit scheduled on Nexus Station in 3 weeks. The human will attend as part of Earth's delegation. Security will be present, but it cannot cover everything. One skilled assassin, one moment of opportunity, and our problem disappears. The plan was put into motion immediately. Hired the best killer he could find, an operative who had never failed a mission. The assassin would disguise himself as a servant, equipped with a neural dampener that would hide his hostile intentions from security scanners. He would carry a poisoned blade, thin enough to slip past weapons detectors, coated with a toxin that would kill a human in seconds. It was a perfect plan. What did not know was that the intelligence network was the most sophisticated in the galaxy. They had agents in every empire, spies in every government, listening devices in places that were supposed to be secure. Queen knew about the assassination plot within hours of its creation. She read the report in her private chambers, her face completely still. Her chief advisor, Lord, watched her nervously. He was one of the few beings in the universe who could read her moods, and right now he saw something that frightened him. He saw cold, controlled rage. "Your Majesty," said carefully, "we should cancel the summit. Keep Commander Cole on Earth where he can be properly protected." No, his voice was ice. "We will not hide, we will not cower. That is not how I respond to threats." "Then what do you propose?" Smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "We let them try." The summit proceeded exactly as scheduled. Danny Cole attended as a member of Earth's delegation, accompanied by Ambassador Wells, and her aide Peter was present as well, though she maintained careful distance from Danny in public, playing the role of a disinterested monarch who had simply made a political decision. The reception was held in the Grand Hall of Nexus Station, a massive space filled with delegates from hundreds of species. Danny stood near the Earth delegation's table, feeling out of place among all the important people in fancy clothes. He was wearing his dress uniform, which was uncomfortable, and he missed the simplicity of his ship. "You look nervous," Ambassador Wells said quietly. "I hate these things," Danny admitted. "All this talking and scheming. Give me a ship and some stars any day." "Welcome to politics, Commander," she smiled slightly. "Just try not to start any wars." The assassin moved through the crowd like a shadow. He was disguised as a servant, carrying a tray of drinks, his neural dampener hiding his true nature from the security systems. He had studied his target carefully. He knew Danny's habits, his movements, his patterns. He knew exactly when to strike. He approached Danny's table, the poisoned blade hidden beneath a napkin on his tray. His hands were steady. His heart was calm. He had done this dozens of times before. He never completed the motion. One moment Queen was on the other side of the hall, engaged in polite conversation with a delegate. The next moment she was beside the assassin, moving faster than any being in the room could follow. Her hand closed around his throat and lifted him off the ground as if he weighed nothing. The tray clattered to the floor. The blade skittered across the polished surface. The entire hall fell silent. "Did you think I would not protect what is mine?" asked. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the room. The assassin struggled uselessly in her grip, unable to speak, unable to breathe. Turned to face the assembled delegates, still holding the aloft like a trophy. Her silver eyes swept across the crowd, and everyone who met her gaze felt a chill run through them. "Let this serve as a reminder to all of you," she said. "The human species is under my protection. Commander Cole is under my protection. Any who threaten them will not face courts or treaties or diplomatic protests. She squeezed slightly, and the assassin made a choking sound. They will face me. She dropped him. He collapsed to the floor, gasping and coughing. Guards appeared from nowhere and dragged him away. The silence in the hall was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. Every delegate was thinking the same thing. If they had ever considered moving against the humans, those plans needed to be abandoned immediately. Danny stared at, his heart pounding. He had known she was powerful. He had known she was dangerous. But seeing her move like that, seeing the cold fury in her eyes, made him realize just how much he had underestimated her. She walked toward him, and the crowd parted before her like water before a ship. When she reached him, her expression softened. "Are you harmed?" she asked. "No, I'm fine." He shook his head. That was incredible. It was necessary. She reached out and touched his arm gently, a gesture that was shockingly intimate after the violence of moments before. "I told you, Danny Cole, you matter to me. Nothing in this universe will be allowed to change that." Ambassador Wells watched the exchange with wide eyes. She had spent her career studying alien cultures and motivations. She had seen political alliances and strategic marriages and calculated demonstrations of power. This was none of those things. This was a woman protecting the man she loved. The aftermath of the assassination attempt spread through the galaxy like wildfire. High Commander was identified as the person who had ordered the attack. Within days, forces captured him and delivered him to the Galactic Council in chains. The government, desperate to avoid war with immediately disowned him. They claimed he had acted alone, without authorization, in violation of law. They offered him up for execution without hesitation. Faced his death with rage in his eyes, cursing the humans, cursing the universe that had brought him to this end. He had been so close. One more second, one more step, and everything would have been different. But one more second was all it took for everything to change. As was led away for the last time, Danny stood beside and watched. He felt no satisfaction in this death. He felt only tired and sad and grateful that it was over. "Will there be others?" he asked quietly. "Perhaps," admitted. "There are always those who resent change, who cling to their plans even when those plans become impossible. But they will learn. They will all learn." She took his hand and he let her. "You did not ask for any of this," she said. "You simply saved a stranger in space, and now your life has been turned upside down. I am sorry for that." Danny thought about it, about his quiet life before, mapping stars and charting planets, about the simplicity he had lost. Then he thought about standing beside this remarkable being, this ancient queen who had somehow found something worth protecting in a coffee-stained commander from Kansas. "I'm not sorry," he said, "not even a little bit." Smiled, and for a moment, she did not look like a queen at all. She looked like a woman who had finally found something worth keeping. 1 year had passed since Queen made her declaration at the Galactic Council. 1 year since she told the universe that Danny Cole was hers and that humanity was under her protection. 1 year since everything changed. The galaxy was different now. Humanity was no longer a minor species to be ignored or exploited. Embassies from dozens of worlds had opened on Earth. Trade agreements had been signed with empires that previously would not even acknowledge human existence. Technology flowed to Earth at an unprecedented rate, and human ships now traveled freely through regions of space that had once been forbidden to them. The other species had learned their lesson well. After what happened to High Commander, no one wanted to test the limits of protection. They had retreated from their aggressive expansion plans. They had quietly distanced themselves from the weapons dealers who had armed assassins. Even the oldest and most powerful empires treated humanity with a new respect. All because of one woman's declaration. But for Danny Cole, the changes were more personal. He stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching Earth rise over the curve of the moon. The blue and white sphere looked small from this distance, but he knew that billions of people down there were living their lives, going to work, raising families, dreaming of the stars. His people, his home, stood beside him, her silver hair loose around her shoulders, her ancient eyes fixed on the same view. They had spent a lot of time together over the past year. He had visited her, walking through crystalline palaces that had existed since before humans discovered fire. She had visited his, spending weekends in Kansas with his family, learning to fish with his father and bake cookies with his mother. They were strange together, the ancient empress and the farm boy from Kansas. But somehow, against all logic and reason, they worked. "I never understood your species before," said softly. "You are so young, so fragile. Your lives pass in a blink of an eye compared to mine." Danny looked at her. "Does that bother you?" "It terrifies me." She turned to face him, and he saw something vulnerable in her silver eyes, something she rarely showed to anyone. "I will live for thousands of years more, Danny. You will not. I will watch you grow old. I will watch you weaken. And eventually I will watch you leave me." Danny had thought about this too. It was impossible not to think about it when you were in a relationship with someone who had already lived for 2,000 years. The gap between there was enormous, almost incomprehensible. But he had realized something important over the past year, something that made the difference less frightening. "Do you know what my grandmother used to say?" he asked. "Tell me." "She said that love isn't about how long you have together, it's about what you do with the time you're given." Danny reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were cool and smooth as always, but familiar now, comfortable. "We might not have thousands of years, but we have today. We have tomorrow. We have however many years I've got left." He squeezed her hand gently. "So let's make the most of it." Stared at him for a long moment. In her of existence, she had heard every philosophy about mortality, every attempt to rationalize the shortness of life. Scholars and priests and poets had offered her their wisdom, trying to comfort her about the endless deaths she would witness. None of them had ever put it so simply. Time was finite, love was not. "Your species," she said finally, "has so much to teach the galaxy." Danny smiled. "Oh yeah, like what?" "Like how to find joy in impermanence, how to love without certainty, how to be kind even when there is nothing to gain." She moved closer to him until there was barely any space between them. "When I made my declaration, Danny Cole, I spoke from selfishness. I wanted to keep you safe. I wanted to claim you as my own. And now I understand that I had it backwards." She rested her forehead against his, the way she had learned humans did when they wanted to be close. "I am yours. This empire, this power, these thousands of years of wisdom, they mean nothing if I cannot use them to protect the people and the world that made you." Danny grinned. "So what you're saying is that my mom's pot roast changed the fate of the galaxy?" Laughed. It was a beautiful sound, light and warm and genuinely happy. She laughed more now than she had in centuries. Being around humans seemed to have that effect on her. "Yes," she said, "I believe that is exactly what I am saying." They stood together in comfortable silence for a while, watching Earth turn slowly below them. The planet looked peaceful from up here, all its conflicts and problems invisible at this distance. Just a blue marble hanging in the black, home to a species that had somehow captured the heart of a queen. "I've been thinking," Danny said eventually. "About what?" "About what happens next, for us I mean, and for humanity." Tilted her head. "What do you propose?" "Well, we can't rely on your protection forever. That's not healthy for either of us. Earth needs to grow, to develop its own strength, to become a real partner in the galaxy instead of just a species you're protecting." "I agree. What would you suggest?" Danny had been working on this idea for months, talking to Ambassador Wells and other Earth leaders, trying to figure out what humanity needed to thrive in the larger universe. Technology sharing, he said. Not just gifts, but real partnerships. Let human scientists work alongside researchers. Let us learn, grow, develop our own innovations based on what you teach us. Nodded, that can be arranged. And cultural exchanges. Let humans visit worlds and let your people visit Earth, not as protected guests but as equals. Let us get to know each other properly. Also reasonable. And most importantly, Danny paused, gathering his thoughts. Let us make mistakes. Let us stumble and fall and pick ourselves up again. Don't protect us from every danger because that's not how species grow. Trust us to handle things ourselves and only step in when we truly need help. Was quiet for a long moment. She had been protecting things for 2,000 years, guarding her empire, eliminating threats, maintaining control. The idea of stepping back, of letting someone else handle their own problems, was foreign to her. But she trusted Danny, more than she had ever trusted anyone. Very well, she said. We will do it your way, partnership instead of protection, growth instead of shelter. Danny smiled at her. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. I reserve the right to intervene if your species does something catastrophically foolish. Fair enough. They laughed together, and the sound echoed through the empty observation deck. Below them, Earth continued its slow rotation. In the cities and towns and villages of that small blue world, people were going about their lives. Most of them had no idea how dramatically their future had changed over the past year. They did not know about the queens and empires and galactic politics that had shaped their destiny. But they would learn in time. They would grow into a galaxy that no longer saw them as weak or primitive. They would build ships and explore stars and make alliances with species they had never imagined. They would make mistakes and face challenges and overcome obstacles that seemed impossible. And through it all, they would carry with them the quality that had captured S's heart in the first place. They would be kind. Not because it was strategic, not because it gained them anything, simply because kindness was part of who they were, woven into the fabric of their culture, taught to them by parents and grandparents and communities that believed in caring for strangers. Danny Cole had not known any of this would happen when he ordered his ship to investigate a distress signal. He had simply seen someone in need and chosen to help. That was all. That was everything. Because in the end, that was what made humans special. Not their technology or their military or their political skills, just their stubborn, irrational, beautiful capacity for kindness. And in a galaxy full of ancient empires and vast powers and species that calculated every move, that simple quality had been enough to change everything. Looked at the man beside her, this ordinary human who had somehow become the most important person in her long existence. He was not particularly strong or smart or talented. He was just good, genuinely good, in a way that she had almost forgotten existed. I love you, she said. The words felt strange on her tongue. She had not spoken them in over 1,000 years. Danny turned to look at her, surprised and moved. I love you too. They stood together as Earth rose above them, an ancient queen and a Kansas farm boy, two unlikely people who had found each other across the vastness of space. The galaxy had gone quiet when made her declaration, but now it was waking up to a new dawn, a future shaped by kindness and courage, and the simple human belief that everyone deserves to be cared for. It was going to be a good future. They would make sure of it.